Okay, welcome to High Profile Q&A. My name's Vanessa Talbot, and what I do is help coaches and change makers build their profile and get known. And what I love to do is have people who have been out there and doing the stuff that many of us want to achieve, and they're already out there, such as Lucy, and get them to be available for you to be able to have a chat to. And ask questions, and get great information. So today we have Lucy Cavendish, who I met a few months ago, and just love it because I had already been a fan because I had quite a few of your cards, Lucy. So Lucy calls herself a natural white witch, author and dreamer, and works with magic and helps us create a balance between this world, the universe. And she's also author of White Magic and Lost Lands. For anyone who hasn't seen that one, there's Lost Lands. Lucy, I'm still through it, see? Still working my way. Yeah. Loving it.
Okay.
No, I do. I'm on Avalon at the moment.
And I see.
And of course, author, creator of, and most of you have come on here today to discover how to make, create and get published your own books, and of course oracle cards as well. This is a question I've always wondered as well, how to actually create these beautiful little things. There's the shapeshifter one, that's the one my daughter loves. And then we have fairy, forest and the mermaids one. I know you have a lot more, Lucy. They're just a couple here that I've got.
Yeah. Hey, cards.
Yeah, you did a reading for me with this one and I fell in love with it, so I raced it and bought it. Yeah, but I already had this one. Yeah. Okay. So, welcome. I'll do a little housekeeping. Yeah, you're most welcome. Thank you for coming. I'll just do a few little house readers for everyone. Lucy's going to be available to answer your questions and we'll have a little chat. But first, if you can just see there's a chat box down the bottom. If you've got a question, if you could just pop it into the chat box, and then when I see that, I'll be able to unmute, so if you can ask Lucy live. If for any reason you don't wish to appear live, by all means, just mention it in the chat box when you put your question there, and I will ask it for you, because I know not everyone is super comfortable with asking and appearing live. So I hope everyone understands that works. But to get this down the bottom, you just put in the chat box there. Okay, Lucy, thank you so much.
My pleasure, my absolute pleasure.
I suppose the first thing I just want to get a background from you is, how did you actually start in this?
Right, okay. Well, look, I don't think anyone sort of sits around and thinks, okay, what I want to do when I grow up is be this. It kind of evolves. And I think some of the first realizations I had that perhaps this was something that I could do as a grown-up, which I really don't consider myself in many ways. But I remember getting my first, having a reading when I was maybe about 24, 25 in a very little shop in London called Mysteries, which is there. Mm-hmm. And I was in a very messy sort of place in my life. And the reader really helped me. Like, she really, really helped me. And what she actually did throughout the reading was she not only did a beautiful reading, was very compassionate, but also quite detached, which I can really appreciate now. She recommended that I read You Can Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay.
Yeah.
And so she really contributed to my growth. It was just an hour of her time, but it made a difference to me for all of my life. And prior to actually having that first reading, I'd been really wondering about, should I get a tarot deck? Can I really do this? What can I, do you have to join a special club or go to Tarot University to be able to do this kind of work? And I think that first sort of realization that perhaps I could start reading for people, and I could have a tarot deck, I could learn about this. And I remember very distinctly having the thought, maybe one day I could create something myself. And I remember talking to a friend about it when I got back to Australia a couple of years later, because by that stage I was very, very immersed in learning, and I was just so fascinated, and I was so, it didn't feel real. It felt more like, what if one day I could do that? I
Yeah.
didn't know how, I didn't know how it would work, but I just had that thought, that very, very strong thought. And it originated in that shop in London, in Mysteries. And what was really cool, a couple of years
Still
ago in
sitting there with
2015,
her socks on.
in London, I went back.
Just noticed.
Hang on a second, Lucy. Sorry, we've got a bit of background noise. So I'm just going to mute everyone and then unmute you, because I have a feeling some people might have their microphone on. So I'm going to re-mute everyone. And if everyone can just check that they do have their sound muted. So that, because at the moment there's some voices going over Lucy. So let me. Now that's better. Now let me unmute you, Lucy. Just you. Okay. Now speak.
Okay. Yeah. So like I was saying, when I was last in London, which was 2015, I went back to Mysteries, and I went back to thank them for, what they'd done for me all those years ago. It was over 30 years ago. And what was really interesting was where all the decks were sold, which was where I originally went and looked and was running my hands over them and thinking, could I ever do this? My decks were there.
Wow.
So there was this incredible kind of circle that had taken place. So, it's hard to explain how it happens or why it happens. But I think, first of all, you've got to really have that moment where you think, maybe I could do this. And maybe I really would love to do this. But in order to make that happen, I think you've got to be in love with the practice and the craft of it. And I think you need to be quite adept as a reader as well. I think it's really important to have a background in reading and to have a really solid foundation of knowledge across, what we would broadly call magic. I do see a lot of people a lot of the time who are sort of saying to me, I've been told by a particular guide or a particular angel, for example, that they need to do this work. And that's wonderful. But I think there's that moment, the spark, the guidance, the moment that lights the spark of inspiration within you. And then there's all the sheer hard work that it takes. And a lot of the time people don't hear about that, the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. And,
I know.
and there is, there's enormous.
I remember you saying to me, I just remember you saying to me the other day, like, people underestimate the amount of time and the amount of work that it takes to get all this happening for you.
It does. You need to be really devoted. And I guess I want to talk about the word sacrifice a little bit, because it's a word that people shy away from. Today we've all, to a degree, been affected by a lot of the new age material that's come out of the United States, and some of it's absolutely beautiful and fantastic. I have a slightly different take. I don't think it's as simple as just manifesting. I think there's hard work and there's glory and beauty in hard work. There's a real purpose to it, and it's where you learn and where you test yourself and where you go through a kind of initiation. For every deck that I've created, there's a huge story behind every single one of them. And within that story, there's always been challenges. Sometimes it's been very smooth, but at some point in every single story or journey, there's going to be a challenge. And it's also almost part of the magical process is that at some point you will be dared to continue moving forward with your dream, even if everything around you looks like you can't go ahead or you shouldn't go ahead. That's the point at which you're like water and you have to find a way around the rock that's been thrown in your path. Yeah. So, I'd really encourage everyone to not think that if there are challenges or if it seems difficult from time to time, that is a message from the universe saying give up. Because I think that's how it's interpreted a lot of the time, that there's this sort of sense these days of, unless everything's really simple and really easy, obviously I'm not meant to do it.
Mm.
But
Mm.
that's not how our lives work. Our lives are full of challenges, initiations, rites of passage, and we often perceive these as being incredibly challenging. And I certainly have. Every single deck has had its challenges, and getting them born. It has not been some sort of process where I'm just divinely blessed and guided. It's taken a lot of tenacity and a lot of determination and a lot of working around what I would call huge obstacles from time to time. You just really need to keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. And
yeah, I get that.
it's you're no different to an athlete in some ways. I know it seems like maybe a strange comparison to make, but you need to train, you need to work hard, you need to deliver. And I think that's where a lot of people can come up with an idea, but actually following through and making it come to life, finding the artists, working with the artists, maintaining your relationships, and then the horrible nitty-gritty of drawing up contracts, going into negotiations, not knowing what you should be, what you should be earning, or how you should be structuring royalties, for example, all those sorts of nitty-gritty things. There's a lot to learn.
I know,
But
and I have a few
don't hear
questions
any of
for you, Lucy. So do you want?
Sure.
Is it okay if I unmute?
Yeah, can I just Can I just say one thing
Yeah,
quickly?
sure.
Is that you don't hear a lot of this. You don't hear a lot of the backstory. You hear a lot of I was guided to do it and then it happened. Yes, but there's always, trust me on this, there is always a story behind every single thing you see on those bookshelves or that you have in your room or that you're working with. There's a story behind them and how they came to be in your hands. And that's kind of what I want to share. So please don't be disheartened when things get difficult, because that's part of the process.
And I know throughout this call, like we've got half an hour roundabout, that you said that you will share some of the ups and downs of your own journey. Mm-hmm. So we'll
Sure.
do some of that as well, if you don't mind, because I think it's good for people to get into the fact that it's not an easy road. And when you have made it, it's tempting to believe, oh, it was easy for them. But no, you have a lot of ups and downs on that road. But first, what I'm going to do is, Renee popped in first with a question. So I'm just going to unmute you, Renee, and see if you want to just ask Lucy that question live. So there you go, Renee. You're right to talk.
Hi, Lucy. How are you going?
Hello. How you going, beautiful?
I'm good, thank you. How interesting that I messaged you the other day asking about the,
I know.
Are you still doing these things? So when it popped up, I was like, okay, thank you. Very good. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions. So one of them, I have like heaps of thoughts and all this stuff running around in my head, and I don't know where to put it. I don't know where to put, because I don't see exactly where it's headed, whether it would be a book or whether it would be better suited to an oracle card deck. So I guess, the question is, where do I start? That would be
I can really relate to what you're saying, because I have 9,000 more ideas and thoughts and inspirations than ever actually make it to life. Okay. And that's part of doing this is accepting that. See, I personally think that ideas don't belong to us in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's these spirits out there, and they're flying around, and they're trying to find people like you or me to come through and express themselves through. So, and you find most people who work in any kind of creative field accept this, the songwriting, poetry, whatever, that there's all this stuff going on out there in the ether, and we're kind of the conduits, and it comes through us. So you're going to have to accept, I think, that not every single idea that you have is going to make it. It's like every single time you have sex, you don't make a baby, right? If you're having that kind of sex.
Exactly.
So, if you're having hetero straight sex. But what I'm saying is that you need to sort of narrow things down a little bit and probably choose something to work on first of all that is really passionate, and just try and focus. Focus is really important. So if you're an athlete, right, you are not going to be like, but I'm good at all these different sports. I'm good at all these different things. I have to do all of them. At some point you have to choose and you have to focus for a while. You just need to. So when you have all of these ideas, you'll probably notice that there's some themes coming through. I would ask you to pay attention to what
Absolutely.
the themes are.
Yeah.
And to begin to kind of put those themes into a kind of framework. And you'll find that there's some kind of thematic organizing factor behind various stories that the spirits are trying to tell through you. And you're going to need to collect those and to gather those into kind of pods, you know, so that you can then begin to think, is that a book or is that a card deck? What's the best way to deliver that material? You know, and I guess there's a whole lot of practical things to think of in terms of, is it a book or is it a card deck? Because to create a card deck, you need an artist, or you need to be an artist.
Yeah. And that was that's my really next thing. It's like, how do you find someone that would be suited to your vision, like an artist, you know, because they can't see what's in my mind. So how does that work?
Well, you know, there's a couple of ways. There's serendipity, which is really beautiful and just coming across people, or there's literally putting the word out. And look, even very, very well-known people, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Rebecca Grace Campbell's work, but Rebecca, who is an amazing Hay House author, an Australian Hay House author who is doing really well internationally at the moment with her book, Rise, Sister, Rise, is looking for an artist at the moment for her deck. She put the word out through her networks and on Facebook. Don't be shy about that. It's not a sense of failure to say, hey, look, I'm looking for someone. I often do that because, you know, there's lots of things I don't know how to do. There's more things I don't know how to do than what I know how to do. So I need to be humble enough and open enough to put the word out. And then you have to be brave enough to go through people's work and find the person who's going to resonate. And that means you're also going to have to say no to lots of people. So it opens up lots of emotion. I knew that was going to be. And then there's serendipity. There's going in and looking at artists' work. Like, I think it's really important, if you really have the intention to create a deck and you're not an artist yourself, you need to go and look at artists' work. You need to go on all of the different sites out there and you need to make yourself familiar with their work and what they're doing and whose work you resonate with. That's a really important factor.
Okay, so the sound's just gone there, so we might just
the sound went a little bit. That was really interesting because I was just in China and it sounded actually like Chinese music singing through her.
I do have another one from Helen. I'll just ask Helen's question because Helen said she's at her son's swimming carnival, so we won't put that on.
Right. Okay.
I was
good on you, Helen. That's commitment.
It is, isn't it? Helen asked, Lucy, I was wondering if you feel that oracle cards need to be full of artwork or if, say, just symbols would work for the cards as well.
I think symbols would work really beautifully. To me, that is artwork. I don't think a card deck needs to necessarily have literal depictions telling a story, you know, the narrative artwork that we're so familiar with seeing, which really started with the Rider-Waite tarot deck. Prior to that, tarot decks, for example, were full of symbols. So, for example, the Nine of Swords was literally 9 swords. The only literal depictions of people and stories and narratives were within the major arcana. So it's kind of a recent thing that we've taken this road of, you know, depicting an energy or a message with a kind of almost like a shot from a film, you know what I mean, that's artistically depicted. I think having symbols is really powerful. As an oracle, remember what an oracle is. An oracle is a person who steps, or a thing that steps between the world and delivers a message from one world to the other world. And therefore an oracle could be runes, it could be the Ogham, which is an ancient Celtic form, and they're all symbolic. So I think, yes, symbols, as long as you're very clear on what they mean. Because if it's a symbolic language you're bringing through yourself and people are not generally familiar with them, for example, people are familiar with runes, I think as long as they're beautiful and beautifully depicted, and of course that's subjective and open to discussion of what's beautiful and what works, because everyone's perception is quite different.
Yes.
I think you've got to make sure that it looks really stunning. But I think, yes, symbols are perfect as long as you can read them and as long as you can tell whoever you're reading for what they are. And as long as they look beautiful. I think that would be really mystical to have, a spread before me, which I had to decipher in that way. That, for me, because I like those sorts of challenges, I would really enjoy that.
So as a reader, it would be wonderful for you too.
As a reader, but also as a person being read too, I imagine that would really take me into almost another realm, because, if people look at images that are depicting a story, say there's two wolves and a woman playing a violin, the way the human brain is constructed, it automatically goes into storytelling and beginning to try and decipher it for themselves. A symbol's really cool because it kind of shuts you out and welcomes you in at the same time. So it's a little bit more mysterious and a little bit more clean in some ways as well. So I like that. I really like that idea.
We have Jessica, and Jessica apparently is already working on her own deck. So she's going to ask.
Good on you, Jessica.
Yeah, I know Jessica. She's absolutely gorgeous. And she has been out here to Orange with me, Lucy. So I'll just unmute you, Jessica, and you can ask Lucy the question that you wanted to around your particular deck and the next steps. All right, you're on, Jess.
Hi, Lucy. Thanks, Vanessa. Hi, Lucy. How are you?
Hello. I'm really well. Hello. Beautiful to see you.
My question is, I've actually already kind of downloaded and written my deck. I have a vision around the artwork and all that type of stuff. So really, my question is now the time to kind of go out to printers and publishers, or to get quotes and things together, or do I wait until completely finished product?
Look, I would begin that process now, because the very fact that you're asking about it shows that you're already, part of you is in that mode and wanting to find out what will work. And it might be helpful too, because depending on the kind of artwork that you choose, it could have an impact on the kind of printer that you choose as well. So I would find out as much as possible. There's so many different people doing this kind of work now. I would arm myself with some quotes, and it might be what you need to make it, feel really solid and feel very real. And it will also help you in terms of financial planning, because, obviously this costs money, which nobody wants to talk about. Everyone just wants to say, yeah, it'll all divinely come. But it might help you start to put aside some money for it and to just plan so that you can take everything into consideration moving forward. I'm an extremely pragmatic person. I don't think that's unspiritual at all, to be pragmatic and to be practical. And I think the more information you have, don't overload yourself, but maybe ask a few people who they may have used. If you look inside of decks, what you'll often find on the left-hand page, about 2 or 3 pages in, usually, in the fine print down the bottom, usually you can discover where something's been printed. It will say so there. Right. And that's a really good hint, because you can go and check that and go, oh, that's where that, and that's about the size that I want. So therefore you're cutting out a lot of the question marks along the way. It's a real leap of faith, this process too, because when you get things printed, particularly as most people do, they tend not to get them printed in their own country. They tend to get them printed, for example, in China, and India is a place where many, many things are printed now, all sorts of different issues with both of those. But the main one really is that you can't be there in person for the proofing process and so forth. So I'd begin to find out now, because there's quite a bit to get your head around, but simultaneously be working on the art and bringing the art in and choosing that, and keeping in mind what you want the end result to feel like, to look like. Okay. So yeah, I'd start now. Okay. It's a very long answer.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
And talking of, you were heading off there into publishing land there, Lucy, and we did have a question here from Michelle, and she said it's fine for me to ask it, so she must have a noisy background too. Self-published or traditional publishing? What is the go?
Well, that's a very black and white question, and I'm in rainbow land with that. Okay. Now, the reason I say that is because I would opt every single time for what's called traditional publishing. And that's not just because I'm traditionally published. That's because there's an enormous amount that goes into this. And even with what's called self-publishing now, it's really sort of turning into author-assisted publishing, where a publishing house has an offshoot. So, for example, Hay House has Balboa, Rockpool has Love and Write. There's many established traditional publishing companies now that are kind of two-tiered, and they're meeting the demand for people who want to bring out their own work. In the world that we're in now, we're in a post-traditional world where everyone has the ability to create their own work and get it out there. If you can get your work published through a traditional publishing house, there's lots of advantages to that. Lots of advantages, and those tend to be marketing. You don't have to worry so much about production and so forth. There's an inbuilt production process, and there's a support team around you. But it's difficult to get published traditionally. It's a tough process. I think it's really good to opt for. It's called self-published. I don't think it really is self-publishing. It's author-assisted publishing. Yeah, I think it's really good to go for that route. Then once you've got something within your hands that is real and tangible, and if it does well, you are in a really good position then to go and negotiate with those traditional houses. So I think I don't think it's so much a this or that. I think it's a how are you going to make this work for you? What can you do financially? Have you gone through the traditional publishing route? Have you been knocked back? I've been knocked back. Many people have been knocked back. I could tell you story after story of people whose decks you probably all have. So it's more of an interrelationship between these alternative routes to publishing and the traditional routes now, making the most of it, seeing what the traditional houses are doing. They're changing and adapting all the time now too. They're not even traditional really anymore, because as I said, all of them are moving into this author-assisted arena as well. So if you can't get your work published through a traditional house, I would tend to send my proposal in. Make sure your proposal is fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and have a point of difference. And that's something I think a lot of people don't do. They send in a very rambly, I was divinely guided to do this deck. Okay. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't, and when you're a publisher in that genre, you hear that, you see that every single day. But it's when something arrives on their desk that looks amazing, that feels amazing, that knows what it is, it knows what its identity is, it knows who it's trying to reach and talk to. That's when they sit up and listen. And even then they might knock you back, but that you might get some feedback, which would be really helpful in your own self-publishing as well. Do you sort of see what I mean? I think it's really helpful to try as many things as possible and not be scared of being knocked back, because what we all have and we all feel it. It doesn't get any easier. You go through your life and you kind of go, wow, that still stings, it's still vulnerable. So please don't think, that it doesn't happen to people, no matter if we look like we've made it. We've all got our stuff going on behind the scenes. Every single day stuff comes up. And you just have to kind of, it's not so much roll with the punches, but you have to kind of duck and weave a little bit and go, how am I going to make this work for me? And am I going to give up? Because you see, when I left full-time work a long time ago, my first marriage broke up. I left full-time work. And, things were pretty tough. I had a mortgage myself. I was a single mum. I wasn't in a financial position to do this work, at all. I should have gone and got a traditional job. If I'd listened to the traditional advice, I should have gone and gotten a proper job. I was in a proper job, a high-paying proper job. But I'd made a promise to myself that I would do this work, that I would give it a red hot go. at that point when my marriage broke up and I was looking at paying off my ex-husband an enormous amount of money, in our settlement, I had to ask myself, am I going to keep my promise to the goddess and to myself, or am I going to cop out? So it's when things get tough that you've got to keep your promises too. So that's a really long answer to that question.
No.
But I hope there's some helpful kernels in it, that you've got to keep going, and you've got to take those knockbacks that you might get from those traditional houses, and it might help make your work better.
Yeah.
You can't just go, they don't understand my vision. It's more like, okay, well, what can I take away from that could be really helpful to make my vision clearer? Because sometimes I've seen amazing proposals from people who are incredible, but it's just not clear what they're doing.
That raises two questions. Since you mentioned proposal, Lucy, there have been two questions actually come in about that. And I think for most of us, the idea of what on earth and how on earth do we do a proposal is what's coming up. So the question what would you put in a proposal? Yeah, and what are the elements of a good proposal?
Okay. Well, this is my belief, okay? You're going to hear different things from different people. My belief is that a really good proposal today contains several elements. It has to have an online sort of life. It can't just be paper driven anymore. So once upon a time, what you would have done is done a very short cover letter saying, this is who I am, this is what I've done, I really hope you like it, bye. And then you move into your proposal, which within 3 paragraphs should very clearly sum up what it is you're doing. And a really good exercise that I get everyone to do in my courses and workshops around this sort of work is I get you to write the back of the book or the back of the deck. The blurb that's on the back of the book and the back of the deck that says, this deck is blah, blah, blah. It's for who. I want you to do that, because if you can do that, that's almost what you should send to your potential publisher. It's really important to be able to sum up what you do, why it's good, who it's for, and so forth. Yeah, that. Exactly. That. And it should sound wonderful. So please don't be afraid of tooting your own horn, but make it sound, and it should have a point of difference. It should be different to everything else out there. And that's kind of what you have to identify within your proposal as well, is why would people go for your work when there's already so much work out there? What is it? And you don't literally say it's filling a gap in the market, which my statistics say. You don't do that. But you are sure to sort of cover an area so that it sounds fresh and exciting for the publisher and for the reader in time as well. You've got to really believe in it. And then what I would do is I would always include, if you're doing a card deck, for example, a little bit of the why and the how, but it should be really easy to work with. I can't overestimate this. When something's really complex, and perhaps too complex, is crowding in a lot of ideas and is difficult and cumbersome to work with, publishers their heads are going to spin, and they're going to go, if I don't get it, how's anyone else going to get it? So you need to sort of say, this is how it works. This is what it is. This is why it's great. This is how it works. Provide, say, 5 images from the deck.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And 5 card meanings, so that people can really see what it is. But then I think in this day and age, I would do a video.
Oh, okay.
I'd do a little video and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm working on, here's my artwork, this is what I'm talking about, here's the spread that I've done earlier. I think so many people would love it. Here's some feedback I've had from, potential people. Do you know what I mean? Either do a video, or sometimes what people do with books now is they do like a trailer, just like a trailer for a movie. Yep. They do a book trailer. And it provides some of the storyline. It provides some of the imagery that might be used depending on the kind of book that you're doing. And this is rather commonplace now. So, for example, with Hay House authors, they all do like a book trailer that includes a video for themselves and a little bit of a spiel about the book itself and how it can help people. I think it's really important that you also work on your own profile. And as a hermit myself, you know, I'm a person, yeah, I seem very extroverted in a lot of ways. You know, if you met me, you probably wouldn't think that I was as introverted as I am, but I'm very, very introverted. And I love talking to people. I love spending time with people. But the idea of things like if people say networking, I cringe, I run away, I retreat. Whereas if you say to me, do you want to talk to some people? I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. But you kind of got to get over that. You've got to, I hate saying you've got to build a profile, but you've got to build a profile because your publisher wants to know that your work isn't going to be hard to sell. They want to know that you've already got people who are interested in what you're doing. So I'm afraid that means coming out of our little hermity crab shells and from time to time putting the work in. Now, having said that, all of the work that you do needs to be really authentic. Do you know what I mean? It can't just be a fake thing where it's like, hi, all of a sudden you're pretending to be someone you're not. It's got to come from the real you, the heart of you. And I think the more raw and authentic you are, the more people can connect with you and the more a publisher can see into the heart of you as well. So that's something I would really suggest doing.
Yeah, and Lisa Starlight has just got a question too, because you were talking about the proposal and the videos and all that sort of stuff. And I'm really glad, Lucy, that you did talk about having the profile, because I remember going to Hay House with on one of their cruises, and they say you must build your profile, you must build an audience or a following before we will look at you. So it's really important to do that. I don't know if you've got enough time to take another couple of questions. It's up to you.
Look, let's go for it. I'm enjoying myself. Let's do it.
Lisa Stallard, do you want? I can unmute you, Lisa Stallard, and let you just ask Lucy your question, because yours is still on that proposal thing. So here we go. Oops, I think I did the wrong one. Jumped. Lisa Stallard, there you go.
Hi, Lucy. How are you going?
Hello, Lisa.
Yeah, this kind of segues in quite nicely with what Vanessa just said and with your proposal idea. I'm writing a book at the moment. Well, it's in the birthing stages. I'm kind of really hesitant to just send proposals off to publishers, because I almost feel like it's just sending it into the ether to some unknown person that might not ever even open the envelope. So I was wondering, is there events like Vanessa just mentioned, the Hay House cruise, which I do remember Vanessa talking about before, events that you can actually go and meet people in person, publishers in person. So there's more of a door opening rather than just sending a proposal in the mail or sending off an email with a video attached that they might not even look at.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I see where you're coming from. Look, if it's possible for you to go to events and to build a rapport with someone, of course, but I think it has to come really naturally. And I think it's, look, what you really need to focus on, I think, is the idea and the work. And yes, if you can go along to an event and meet someone and they can put a face to a name and so forth, but just remember that they are probably meeting 5,000 people over that month period who all have a similar kind of thought as well. So at the end of the day, it has to come back to the work, and it has to come back to the quality of the work. And look, I can understand your trepidation about sending things out into the ether, and you know what you are, you're going to send your baby out into an unknown land, and it's scary. It's like sending your kid to school for the first time. You don't know what's going on there, but you've got to do it. You've got to detach a little bit. So you said you're in the initial stages of writing your book. I would be more inclined at this stage to work on my book and get my book really to where I want it to be, and to build up that rapport and to find out as much as you can about the publishing process. But really the heart of your work at the moment is the book itself and getting it complete, because that's the biggest challenge for most people, is not starting, not the middle part, it's finishing. So that's what I would be working on at the moment. And when you feel you're getting close to that, then I would send out my proposal. And I would keep it short, bright, to the point, clear and personal. So there's a touch of yourself in there. That's what I'd work on. So I know that's kind of another roundabout way of answering, but all of these things feed. There's, it's a good idea to go to these events, but that alone won't get your work into the right hands and doesn't guarantee anything. It's all about the interaction you have on the day as well, making sure you have a really good interaction. And you can't guarantee that. So, a lot of the things that I've had have been really serendipitous. Do you know what I mean? I've met people through various encounters, and I guess just, if you're just a really good person, and if you're just you're interested in other people and how they are, not so much interested in here's my work and I want to get it out there. Do you know what I mean? You build rapport through being genuinely interested in other human beings, not through being genuinely interested in using them to get your work out there. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but you know what I mean? There's a real difference. Building rapport is about having a personal connection with another human being because you care. And I think that's what you need. You need to remember with all of your online interactions, all of your personal interactions with people at various events and so forth. If you care about the people, that's really what this is about. It's about building relationships and caring and interacting. So there's 1,000 different ways to do this these days. So yeah, it's part of the work for sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Lisa. I've got another Lisa too, as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that this other Lisa has been offered. Is talking about card decks as well, and I know she had a thing for you. So I'll just unmute and make sure that she can come on and ask you a question.
No worries.
All right, Lisa Renda. No, she's playing around with it. Unmute, mute. No, she can't.
I can hear a cockatoo.
That is my place.
Yeah, I've heard two cockatoos coming through.
That is the kookaburras, to be honest.
Ah, right.
Kookaburras and cockies out there. We have a baby kookaburra, Lucy, and yes, and there's a lot of squeaking, squawking, and everything going on out there because of the baby one. All right, so I couldn't get Lisa on, but I have Gillian here. She's got an interesting one. I hadn't thought of this one. Just let me find her.
Okay.
Because hers is quite interesting. It's going into, here we are. Gillian, I'm just going to unmute you. There you go, Jill.
Lucy, I'm just curious on your what you think about using decks in electronic form, so they can be used from a smartphone or a tablet. I've played with one deck that I've downloaded as an app, and I'm just curious to what your thoughts are.
Yeah, look, I've never actually used a deck as an app personally, but several of my decks are apps. So it's not something that I can't speak from a personal perspective of having used them. I've looked at them, but I do think that there's definitely space for that medium because so many people are more likely to use their phone these days and may have their phone with them rather than a deck with them. So say if they want an answer to a question or some kind of assistance throughout the day and they don't literally have their deck with them, if they have an app, they can turn to that and work with that. So I think there's definitely a space for it. I think with everything, there's pros and cons. I know a lot of purists will sort of say, no, it should never be that way. It must always be, tactile and in your hands. But look, those days have gone. They really have. We're in a post-paper world in lots of ways. We're looking at resources and how we can, conserve as many trees as we possibly can. And so there's a real place for apps, especially in a world where people are using electronics to the degree that they are now. I also think there's a place for interactive books online and look, all sorts of things. So I think that, I think there's a place for them. I can see them working. I don't personally use them because I'm a bit of an old fuddy-duddy in some respects. But every 5 years I go, you know what, I'm so behind. I really need to get myself sorted so that I don't get left behind in the technological movement, because everything moves and changes so fast. So really every now and again I kind of have to pick myself up and go, you know what, you're not going to be afraid of it. I'd rather not, I'd really rather not. And my second preference would be to have someone kindly do it all for me, but that's not the way everything works these days. So every now and again I have to go, you know what, get your head around the world, girl, and move forward. So yeah, that's again my very long rambling philosophical answer to your question.
I've got two more final. Thanks, Jill. So yours was a bit different. I was thought, I hadn't even thought of making it out of them. So yeah, interesting. I've got two more questions, and we'll end up with these last two ones, and then Lucy, I might get a couple of little tales from you as well, just to end off. But very, very quickly, I'm just going to unmute Tony Marie. So TM, I hope that this works. All right, she's on.
Hi, I'm actually in the car, Lucy, so I apologise if this doesn't come through clearly.
I hope you're not driving with that in your hand.
No, I've parked. But I'm on the highway on my way to Goulburn, so I hope the connection's okay. One thing I wanted to ask was with the because I'm looking. One of the things on my to-do list is a set of oracle cards. But I've noticed that the imagery that's used and even some of the wording that's used in oracle cards that you put your hands on, which I love, versus the online, they're often very different. Do you think that that's something you need to look at when you're going to develop your own oracle card?
Oh, so I'm not sort of quite clear on the question. So you're saying that the word usage in the decks is different to the word usage online?
Yeah, it seems to be much shorter and much less information online versus the deck.
Can you give me an example? Because are you talking about an app versus the hard copy?
An app. Yeah, an app.
Okay. And so what was the question around that? I guess the reason that happens is because perhaps the app can only handle a certain amount of text. I'm not sure. I'm not really aware of of the nitty-gritty of app development, but I imagine that it's probably geared more to be image heavy and text low because it's a visual kind of medium. Whereas your deck comes with a guidebook, and that can always provide this luxury, this lovely velvety flow of words, whereas an app probably wouldn't do that. But if I was developing my own deck, I would do it as if I was doing it for the hard copy, if that's what you mean.
Yes. And would you change the imagery at all for the app, or would you leave it exactly the same?
No, I'd leave it exactly the same, because otherwise I think what you're potentially doing is confusing people about what they're actually working with. So say, for example, if they're working with, let's say, the Oracle of the Mermaids, and if the Oracle of the Mermaids imagery online was very, very different, or via app was very, very different to the imagery that you would hold in your hand, I wouldn't see them as working sort of in empathy with each other. I think one has to flow into the other. Perhaps there could be points of difference, but I'm not sure what they would be. I think there has to be this really clean flow between, if it's the same being, the Oracle of the Mermaids app should be identifiable as identifiable as the Oracle of the Mermaids deck. But there can be subtle differences to make sure that you're making the most of the medium in which it's being presented. I think that's the important aspect there.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Oh, that's my pleasure. I hope that makes sense.
And we've got one.
It's lovely.
Thanks, TM. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. There one from Lisa that tried to get on. We couldn't mute her. She's just put it in the chat box for me, Lucy. And really the question is, because I know that she's actually been asked to create and be part of a project. She's asking how long does it take to create a deck, really is the question. I suppose that's a real...
Okay, so when you say she's been asked to be a part of it, can I just ask, does she mean in terms of the artwork, or is she co-creating with someone the words? Or
yeah, I think, remember rightly, and I think she's basically co-creating the whole thing, but I don't think she won't be doing the artwork herself. I think she might have to source the artwork, but she's going to come up with the idea.
She's writing with someone.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, how long's a piece of string, really? Well, look, but it's the truth. Some of my decks have taken, if you saw, how patient my publishers were with me, you'd be astonished. And some things take a long time to find their home as well. So, for example, with the Oracle of the Dragonfey, what happened there was it didn't have a publisher. I'd been speaking to my original publisher for a long, long time about, dragons and Dragonfey and this idea that I had, because they kept talking to me. And, there's a whole big story about what was going on there. But for about 1.5 years, I kept getting knocked back, or getting told, yes, maybe if you do it this way, and then I'd try and adapt it. And then, then it was like, no, we still don't want it. So, that was really tough to create it, to write a deck from concept right through to finish. Can take me 2 years, can take me longer sometimes. So some of them are on the burn for a long time, because what I do as part of the writing process, usually for mine, is I bring a sense of place to all the decks. So I tend to travel to amazing stored energy that will then somehow flow through the deck and then be a part of the reading process itself. So I do a lot of different things as a part of the process. It's not just the writing and the, whether people want to call it channeling, writing, whatever you want to call it. But that process is one part. I travel as part of the process of creating a deck. And, sometimes there's a lot of interruptions along the way as well. And sometimes they just totally flow out, and there's this beautiful, clear, open period of space where nothing happens for a while except that deck being created. So it can take, I've had this question before, a guy called J.R. Rivera, who does a lot of work with Oracle decks, asked me, how long does it take you? He said, it takes me so long. It takes me at least 2 months. And I was like, oh man, it takes me years, and that's just the writing of it. So, and I think there's a lot more to it than that, because usually you're not bringing to it just that moment. You're usually bringing a whole backstory to it, years of work in another field of experience. So some of you will have qualifications or fascinations and interests in other areas that will feed its way into your deck. So how long does it take you? It takes you a lifetime. But if you had nothing else to do but sit down and write it for 2 months, I'd say you can do it within 2 months. But the life doesn't work like that for me. My life is such a bizarre jigsaw puzzle, and I have to just find ways to work when I can, where I can, in the strangest, weirdest of places. Scraps of paper, writing on my hand, doing whatever I can to get the messages through when they come through.
So really the answer to that one really is down to each person individually, isn't it? Like the guy does it in 2 months.
It also depends on just how determined you are as well, because, for example, when I was writing one of my first books, I still had like a very, very intense full-time job, was a single mum. So I'd get up at like 5 a.m. and I would write for about 1.5 hours. And then I would write for a full day on the weekend. Do you know what I mean? You find a way.
Yeah.
You find a way.
Yeah,
to do all of this.
You do.
But I've got a very patient publisher in Tony at Blue Angel. He is divine, and very, very understanding. of me. I just want to point out to everyone that if you can hear snuffling, it's not me, it is my dog. So
that's all right. Snuffling dogs, kookaburras.
Yeah.
Life couldn't be filled with any more joy, could it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, and I think we'll just end off. What I'd love you to do, just to end us off, is like you had, some sort of some of your little quirky or magic story that you might be able to leave us with to impart just some of the reality of this world that you are in, and many of us are also hoping to be in.
Yeah. Well, look, I guess some of the magical stuff, some of the real, where you just feel like that was fate, that was just meant. I think the first real solid example of that was when, I said before, when I went for that very first reading, I'd never had a reading before, and I had that reading at Mysteries with that amazing reader, that amazing woman. And she said to me at the end of it, you don't really need a reading, you need a book. And she recommended You Can Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay to me. And that was the first ever reading that I had. It was a tarot reading. Now, cut forward to, that was about 1986. Fast forward to around about the year 2000. And I get a phone call, and it's from Hay House. And Hay House want to do their first ever tarot deck. And they've asked for me to do it. Now, how did that happen? My first reading with tarot, Louise L. Hay's book is recommended to me.
Yes.
Their first tarot deck, I get a letter from her, and that all happens.
I didn't know you were the first one for them. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the first tarot deck that Hay House ever did. So to me, it was just like, so how does that stuff happen? The answer is I don't know. I didn't sit there and go, I'm going to make a spell and I'm going to make sure this happens. It was just more that I had that idea in my head of like, what if I could do this? And what if I work on it? And what I did in the meantime, because I started Witchcraft magazine and I did all of those different things, I came to people's attention because I was active and I was working. And I was, I guess, kind of out there in my own hermity way. You can hide behind a magazine fairly efficiently. But that's how I came to their attention. So all of the work that you do isn't wasted. Someone at some stage will see you at the right time, in the right moment, and make it happen. Now, the other thing that I would say, of a more sort of nitty gritty and, like of a determination kind of story was when I was trying to get the Oracle of the Dragon Fae published, and I was being, and rightly so, sometimes you get told no for a really good reason. Maybe, you are knocking at the wrong door. So I was knocking at a door that had previously been open, and I was getting a lot of different feedback on how it could work for that particular publisher. And I was being told maybe if you do it with another very famous person, or maybe if you, do it a different way. And then I was told there's no way we'll do dragons because they're so scary and, various things. So I got really, I was very disheartened. But what I did was I thought, well, I don't have a publisher. I've gone from these incredible highs where I've had, an amazing publisher, and to suddenly now, a few years later, everything's going well, but the ideas I'm coming up with aren't in keeping with what they seem to be, wanting at the moment. So that's okay. I said to them, look, is it okay if I shop this around elsewhere then? Have you absolutely said no? And getting them to absolutely say no was about a 1.5 year process in itself.
Yeah, wow.
And then, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have a publisher. I didn't have anything. So, but what I did do was I had been researching, all the different artists whose work I really loved and who I thought, I'd love to be a part of this deck. And so I approached them all, and I was incredibly honest and very vulnerable, but very straight up. And I just said, look, I don't have a contract. I don't have anything, but I've got an idea, and I would love to work with you. And I'd like to, if I get a contract, I'll split the royalties, I'll split them with all the various artists. And so that's what I did. I just approached people, and some of them just decided that they liked me and that they wanted to work with me. And I've got lifelong friendships as a result of this process, people who I would never have met, never have got so close to, all these years later. And then I approached Blue Angel, and they were just like, yes. immediately. And Oracle of the Dragon Fae really had this troubled sort of beginning, but became, it's such a foundation deck for a lot of people. It's a very strong deck. It's a real breaker of barriers and builder of foundations. And so I like to think that because I had to break so many barriers to bring about the deck, that it was that you will find that as you're creating a deck, part of the story or the intention of the deck will become part of your energy in your life at the time. And you have to be strong enough to handle that and not see it as if I just kind of gone, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow, and the flow says no right now. You know what I mean? I would never, ever have got this done. Yes, go with the flow a lot of the times, but sometimes don't go with the flow. You've got to go against the flow. You've actually got to be like a salmon leaping upstream, heading towards the place where the spawning ground, the pool of tranquility at the top. That's what makes you really strong. So sometimes, yes, go with the flow. Sometimes, no, you rebel and you find a way to make it happen. And it might not be in its original home, where you thought it was going to be. So you've got to be a little bit open and flexible there.
And really,
so that was one of them.
It's like you really
you got to back yourself
with that one.
Yeah, well, I backed myself, but I was also really straight with people. I sort of said, I don't have anything. Straight up, I got nothing. I got nothing to offer you except that I will share whatever comes through. So that's, I think, part of the nitty gritty of this work too, is how do you divide your royalties, or how do you pay your artists? Yeah. What do you do? There's 1,000 different ways to do all of that. I tend to split royalties with people, because without art there's no deck. And I think that's really important, but that's my way, and that doesn't mean it has to be the same for everybody. There's 1,000 different ways to do it. Yeah. The other thing I'd say is to really to know that some of the people who have become the most prolific deck creators in the world were told initially, for example, that their ideas were ridiculous, and and I don't want to name names. I shouldn't do that, but all of you will know these people. All of you will know, but what you won't know is that they were told that their ideas were ridiculous, and they were almost told that they would okay their initial decks as a kind of favour to them because their books were doing well, for example. And there would, in one case, there was a very limited release of only 1,000 decks, and it all went crazy. And
I got some names in my head that I'm thinking of as you're saying this.
Yeah. So, the point is that most of us have been told no, and we just figure out, if you really care about your idea enough, if you really love it enough, if you made a promise to yourself that this is what you're going to do, you'll find a way. You will find a way. Yeah. So don't be scared. Don't be scared of that. And then, then there's other stuff when, okay, hooray, you get a contract, everyone breaks out the champagne, but you know what? You're going to have to read through that contract and know what it says. And there might be things you need to get changed in that contract too. So that's a whole other ball game too. And that's why in the course I have sections on, like, here's what to look out for in your contracts. Here's what to do in regard to this, that, and the other. Because let me tell you, I've learned the hard way where I've gone, oh, years later gone, oh, really? I should have watched out for that. I really should have. So there's a lot I can pass on and like to pass on, because I just think the more we share, the more everyone is empowered. And, we're going to have a thriving community of creators out there. And I love creators. I think we're awesome. We really are.
What's the course you just spoke of, Lucy? You just mentioned the course.
Look, it's essentially how to create your own oracle deck or spiritual. So it delves into the writing. I'm very, very big on making sure that your writing and your artwork is fantastic, but I also do a lot of the professional side of things as well. How to put your proposal, everything I've spoken about before in terms of putting a proposal together, but the real nitty gritty of all of that, how to approach people, how to build relationships, your profile building, all that kind of stuff. It's not available right now, this particular course, but it will be available through my own website later this year, where I'll be relaunching all of my online courses. So I think it's a really good one, and it's really important to hear the truth, and the truth about what authors earn as well, because people have really bizarre ideas about what we earn. And if, you know, when people actually hear what we earn, quite often they're stunned by the reality of it. They think we're earning a lot of money for every book and every deck. And, you know, whatever you think, I can tell you, you can cut that, you know, you can cut that not only in half, you can probably cut it down by about 90% right now, and that's closer to the truth of it. So it's really important that if you're doing this work, that you don't think, I'm going to get a deck out there and I'm going to make a lot of money. I've had people come to me for readings and say, I'm going to write a book. Is that my way to fortune? And I have to put my own personal prejudices aside and just simply do the reading. But let me tell you, you are unlikely to make a fortune just from doing a book. You need to have a few different income streams going on to make your living within this kind of business. All of us do.
Well, I'm finding the sound of that course very, very interesting. So if people just, you know, interested in everything, like if you want to get hold of Lucy's books, Lucy's decks at the moment, they can head to lucycavendish.com.au. And you've got everything there in your little magic shop in there, haven't you?
I do. I have my magic shop in there, and within the next few months, I'll begin to introduce my online courses through the magic shop there as well. So,
can anyone who's interested in that, can they go on like a list of interest, or do we just have to keep an eye on the website or on your Facebook or something for that?
Did I actually have a list of interest? What an enormously good idea. Look, I think the main thing to do, if you're not my Facebook friend, be my Facebook friend. I'll keep everyone updated. That's kind of where everything tends to happen, where I tend to let everyone know. It's a really good one-stop shop to interact, chat, talk, share, ponder, think, worry, fret, celebrate, enjoy. So that's, you know, come and worry about the state of the world with me there on Facebook.
So find Lucy on Facebook.
and also, you know, that's a really good place just to hear what I'm up to, and you know, and I'm pretty helpful. I'm pretty open to chatting with people most of the time.
Absolutely,
because I do love. I like to help, and I like my fellow humans a lot. So and I want to encourage, you know, really creative, amazing, spirited, spiritual humans. So yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much. Like, we've chatted a lot longer than you and I planned, but it doesn't matter because the questions keep coming. And I think, that actually there's just something here. It just says,
unfortunately, Lucy is unable to.
Set friends on Facebook, as it says, her limit of friends has been reached. So what you can do for anyone that is in that situation is you would be able to...
Can I just say, all of my posts are public. Yeah, just follow me. All of my posts are public. Of my posts are public. Anyone can go on and read them. So it's not friends only at all. I've made sure everything's public so that everyone can read it, including all the people who dislike me sometimes. So
that's one of the downsides of you know, getting known, isn't it? There's not everyone going to love you, but that's a whole nother story. We won't go there.
That's a whole workshop, you know?
How to deal with it. Okay, I want to thank you so much, Lucy. It's been so wonderful, and thankfully your internet held up, and I got my bit. So, and everyone's
saying thank you so much.
Much love and thank you as well is all coming through. A few of them.
Look, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and this is really all recorded. Yeah.
Great.
And you've been so wonderful. And I just want to say again, thank you so much. For anyone, you can follow Lucy on Facebook. You can go to her website, and there's heaps of info and the magic shop on there as well if you want any of those cards. You've made me, actually, I don't have the dragon one that you were talking about, the dragon play one. I'm going to have a look at that one. Pretty sure Sarah's probably got one down the shop, so I'll grab that from there.
Yeah, she will.
Yeah,
she will. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time. And Vanessa, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our chat. I hope we can do it again in future.
absolutely. We'll come up with that, how to deal with the big famous
what
bit.
happens when you're a thin skin sensitive in a soulless world.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Blessings, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.